It's been one of the most traumatic week for Nigerians in a long time, because when last the Nigerians experienced this high cost of petrol? It's been long ago, but now we have to deal with it because what is happening in the Middle East is continually affecting us as a country. In a span of 1 week, the price of petrol has increased twice, and just yesterday it reduced by 100 naira per liter, thanks to Dangote refinery that largely supplies Nigerians petrol. Unfortunately, it is sad that we as citizens have to pay heavily for petrol out of whatever it is that people are earning. They still have to cough out this money because petrol is an essential commodity, just like electricity. We've not had electricity in a while. But petrol is also a very essential commodity in Nigeria that businesses and individuals depend on for their productivity. I had to look at what other countries are doing to mitigate the effects, the negative effect of the Middle East crisis on their citizens, because I realized that not all countries are experiencing the same thing, the same effects of the Middle East crisis and the rising oil prices. Not all of them are experiencing the same thing. I asked myself, what are they doing? What are they doing differently? Now let's come to India and South Korea. They introduced price cap, price control. So the price of petrol cannot increase above a certain limit. Therefore, citizens can still afford to buy at a certain price. I don't know if it's something that our government wants to look into. The President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has said that he's not going to consider any form of price control. Unfortunately, that is it on our part. But in South Korea, in India, they considered price caps or price control so that citizens can continually afford the price of petrol despite the rising global oil price. In some other countries like China, South Korea, and Japan, they are also not ruling out the possibility of depending on their oil reserves, their vast oil reserves. So instead of depending on the import, which has become really expensive, they are now looking at what they have, which they have set aside for moments of crisis like this, so that they can depend on it and they wouldn't have to import the expensive fuel that their citizens would then have to buy at a very expensive price. So this is what China, South Korea, and Japan are also considering. In Nigeria, back home in Nigeria, the federal government, under the leadership of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has announced that it was going to roll out CNG conversion kits. It's a good idea, very fantastic. But I always say, our drivers, our commercial drivers, do they actually reduce the cost of their transportation despite driving CNG vehicles? Reports have shown that that is not the case. So I wonder to what extent that will cushion the effect on Nigerians if there is no strict monitoring on the part of the government. I mean, these are the aspects that government have to look into. Unfortunately, we cannot rely on our own oil reserve because the NNPC cannot even supply the necessary amount, the right amount of petrol or crude rather that Dangote needs. And that's why Dangote have to import. So how do we now rely on our oil reserve? That is the crisis that we have found ourselves in as Nigerians, because from reports it's been stated that our crude is being used to service debts, which is unfortunate for us. But the situation that we have to deal with requires the intervention of the government at the federal and the state level. Otherwise, Nigerians will pay heavily through their nose to buy petrol to run their businesses. Diesel is also pretty expensive. Petrol is another matter, and the minimum wage for Nigerians is 70,000 naira. What can it afford? The prices of food in the market are beginning to go high. Transportation has gone high as well. So, what do citizens do other than consider alternatives like parking their cars? We don't want to go back to that era, but we need the government intervention. The federal government, the state governments need to really wake up. The federal government is making an attempt, but what about the state government? The state government can do more because they are the ones that should feel the pains of the people because they are even closer to the people than the federal government. Nigerians, this is the time for us to look at our government and expect that they do the right things, the needful, for the sake of Nigerians. If you like this video, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. My name is Oroluwa Aladejuebe. Thank you for listening.